Indra. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18. Rishi, Medhatithi Kanva, Devata, Indra, Chandas, Gayatri. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 1.
सोमानं स्वरानं कृणहे ब्रह्मणस्पते रक्षीवन्तं जौषिजः.
Master of knowledge, do make Kakshivat, who is clear-voiced priest, making Soma offering, zealous. Knowledge is God. The verse is dedicated to the unmanifest Supreme, Brahman, who is the source of creation, existence, and all knowledge. The Vedas are also collectively known as Brahman after the conceptual singularity who reveals them, and so the revealer is addressed as Brahmanaspati or Master of Truth. The truth of the Vedas comes from direct experiencing Shruti by the seers, who then express it as verse collectives. Contemporary science is unaware of the means of perception beyond the five senses. Hence, there can be no parallels. But going by the profound material truths contained in the body of Vedic texts, and they being dated to at least many thousands of years before present, one is left wondering as to how the ancients managed to gather, compile, and expound so much knowledge without the tools and support services available to researchers now. As an example, the Purusha Suktam from the 10th Mandalam of Rigveda describes the process of creation that is quite similar to what the cosmology of today does, and even goes beyond. Conditioned as we are with notions ingrained in us by the current system of education, it is quite possible that we refuse to explore potentialities that may explain this ability of the Vedic era. Going by inferences from Vedic thought as explained in earlier verses, perhaps it is ordained that this era of disavowal has to come to pass, and so it has. And as everything in existence is cyclical, it is very likely that perspectives change and change again, repeatedly. The name Kakshivat mentioned in the verse refers to one of the early Vedic composers. There is, however, one conviction that is common to both the Vedic era and the current one, which is that knowledge is God. And so it is, indeed. Vedic thought goes beyond this inference to say that the purpose of knowledge is to lead the pursuer to wisdom and the state of consciousness, which is bliss. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 2.
यो देवान् यो अमीवहावसुवित्पुष्टिवर्धनः सरस्विनक्तुजस्तुरः.
He who is abundance, who is a destroyer of affliction, who knows material functions, nourishment magnifier, who is speedy, let he be associated with us. Abundance and inadequacy. From the mortal perspective, the unimaginably vast universe, with its inconceivable manifoldness and diversity, can be described succinctly as abundance. Since this diversity evolves from a point source and is subject to standard laws of nature, the cited point is abundance too, as it embraces infinite possibilities. Dependence of the human intellect on segregation of functions to comprehend their nuances and also personify them to be able to relate to them in the context of their own thought processes gives rise to the large assemblage of gods and goddesses or divinities who together represent abundance. Immediacy is an impossibility in duality, there being always a time lag, howsoever infinitesimally small, between a cause and an effect. This mortal recognition of reality gives rise to the notion of speed. The reference to the speed of immortals is an acknowledgement of their strict adherence to the laws of nature, which confers upon them the trait of spontaneity. The mention of they being destroyers of affliction is the realization that change is the quintessence of the domain of duality that we inhabit, and all afflictions as well as advantages are fleeting and so destroyed in time. Being associated with the immortals entails treading the path of truth by adherence to natural laws or dharma, which magnifies our nourishment or optimizes our efforts at understanding existence, as swimming with the current always does. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 3.
मानस्संसो अरारुषो धूर्तिः प्रणङ्मत्यस्य रक्षाणो ब्रह्मणस्पते.
Let not the curse of not offering harm approach of mortal towards us. Do protect us, Master of knowledge. Duality and its dichotomies. While the earlier verse dwelt upon the advantage of swimming with the natural flow of current or adhering to dharma, this one highlights the deprivations that beset us upon wading against it. It emphasizes the need to constantly contrast, compare, and correlate our actions with the yardstick of dharma and consider whether it measures up to it. Failure to do so, or not measuring up to the required standards, is considered a curse, which will invariably come to haunt us in time. The standard, however, is quite simple, its only injunction being to offer according to one's capability to any cause that advances statutes of natural law. Rituals around the world have evolved primarily based on this unpretentious notion, embellished by local peculiarities, which are in turn swayed by the immediate environmental contingencies. The aftermath of everyone rigorously following the mentioned injunction is an ideal universe that goes against the definition and compulsions of duality. For every adherent, there has to be an antagonist. This will imply that both can attain understanding about the way life works and consciousness of reality, going their respective ways, but also simultaneously suffer or savor the consequences of their actions without reprieve. Perhaps the division of time into four sections in the descending order of the index of prevalence of dharma as Satya, Treta, Dvapara, and Kali, and its reset at the end of every cycle is based on this notion, where the age of Satya, an ideal state of duality that progressively degenerates, mimicking the physical law of entropy, to the age of Kali, and is reset back to the age of Satya as the universe itself is reset at the end of its cycle. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 4.
सखा वीनो नरिष्यति यमिन्द्रो ब्रह्मणस्पतिः सोमो हिनोतिमर्त्यम्.
Because we would want of powers belonging to both of you, of right thinkings belonging to both of you, of bestowing grace. Possibilities and certainties. Extending the line of thought of the previous verse a bit further in the context of this one, there appears to be enduring lines of divide between the established past to the moment gone by. This moment, which is both a consequence of the established past and direction of progression that is opted for the future without the promise of its fructification, and the future with its immensely diverse possibilities. Focusing upon this moment, the consequences of the past establishing its ambience limits the options available to choose from for an individual. It can also be that parallel choices by others would make the option selected by the first individual fail to advance in its prospected path, either forthwith or after a time delay. This decisive negation or unbridled progression of a choice can be interpreted either as a random happening or a scripted ordainment. If this template were to be shifted to the moment just before the commencement of the very first activity of the universe, the probability of possibility tending to certainty would itself have tended to 1. And also, if the assumption that a process that starts with a certainty will ensure all succeeding activities too to be certainties were to be true, then the visualization that every mortal actor in this universal play of existence is impelled by Indra, the master of truth, is a description of the ordained manner that life meanders along. Here, Indra is equated to the manifest avatar of the master of knowledge, Brahmanaspati. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 5.
त्वम् ब्रह्मणस्पते सोमयिन्द्रश्च मर्त्यम् दक्षिणावात्मम् हसः.
Master of knowledge, essence of truth, and Indra, power of discrimination, you do protect that mortal from harm. Universe Wide Web, UWW. The verse asserts, and correctly so, that regardless of whether it is certainties or possibilities that impel existence towards its destination of dissolution, the propulsive force behind both are the laws of nature, and Indra, the regulator with his power of discrimination. If it is certainty that powers mortal decisions, then there is no further need for any deliberation about the processes of existence. And it can be visualized to be a fascinating web of interlinked activities, transitioning every moment to a new preordained state of being. And Indra, as the webmaster, traversing all around the universe wide web, UWW, Dharma rulebook in hand. If it is possibilities that help mortals opt for a desirable path at every crossroads of life, leading to activities that may be favorable or detrimental to themselves or others, then Indra, in addition to being the administrator of the UWW that he presides over, also dons the wig and collar of a judge and dispenses karmic justice, accompanied with the strike of the gavel. If there was to be a definite expiry date for the universe, then Indra will also be tasked with ensuring dispensation of justice in such a manner that the expiry date is adhered to. Being an immortal, this must be an easy accomplishment for Indra, but it certainly makes the scheme of existence extremely complex. The Vedanga of Jyotisha perhaps alludes to the first and less complex universal scheme being in operation, where karma is seen to be a tool to make dharma work according to the scripted playbook of existence, with each mortal being assigned a set of tool archetypes in the form of preferred thought patterns to put to use to go through its mandated tasks according to the script. The distinction between Brahmanaspati and Indra is made in the verse to impress upon the notion that the former is the unmanifest singularity, while the latter is its manifest avatar. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 6.
सदसत्पतिमद्भूतम् प्रियमिन्द्रस्य काम्यम् सरणिम् मेधामयाशिषम्.
I went to wonderful, beloved, desirable Master of heaven and earth, of Indra, to solicit wisdom. UWW and WWW. Continuing with the thoughts of the previous verse in the context of this one, in contemporary worldly existence, humans worldwide go to that wonderful and desirable dispenser of information, WWW, which, in keeping with the characteristic of duality, has both legitimate facts and misleading prevarications. Those desirous of true knowledge leading to the transcendental prefer the Vedas, UWW, and seek Indra's guidance in realizing the wisdom that it is packed with. Indra and his assisting immortals dispense wisdom by practicing it, and our learning process uses all the five senses granted to mortals and more to grasp at it. There is, however, one stark difference between WWW and UWW. While the former provides alternative options for the underprivileged, the hearing impaired, and the visually handicapped, the latter has in place remote hearing, Shruti, and remote vision, Divya Drishti, for the overprivileged seers. One makes an individual to be a good quizzer at best. The other makes the knower an immortal, remembered and celebrated across generations and eras. Shakespeare would not have questioned the utility of a name if he was conversant with UWW. It is indeed all in the name. The single U, representing singularity and universality, leads a student to comprehend consciousness. The double U, or W, enmeshes the browser in duality and perhaps holds the mind utterly unconscious. Readers of this piece are cautioned that this may be an indulgence in frivolity, but based on truth, as all activities are. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 7.
यस्मादृतेन सिद्ध्यति यज्ञो विपश्चितश्चन स्वधीनाम् योगमिन्वति.
In order that not even sacrifice of wise, not caused to be accomplished in properness, he compels the yoking of intellect. Grace and curse. The double negative used in the sentence can either be attributed to the exuberant use of a language or can be the metric requirement for verse, or both if the composer is an adept linguist. The verse then conveys the message that even a wise and accomplished individual will not be able to compose a verse that explicates truth with complete lucidity if Indra's grace is not upon the individual that provides clarity of thought. As discussed in an earlier verse, grace is essentially something that we bestow upon ourselves unconsciously, first projected upon a personified ideal and reflected upon the projector as God's grace. This perhaps alludes to the possibility that our unconscious is the real conscious, which determines whether an action by us is good for us, the world at large, and according to the law of nature or dharma. If it is so, then its positive consequence would be bestowed upon our unconscious conscious by our conscious unconscious. If the action is deemed incorrect, then the conferral of a detrimental curse happens between the same two entities. However, if the propulsive force of existence happens to be the factor of certainty, then the process of grace bestowal and curse conferral too must be within its ambit. And we come back to the notion that existence is essentially a preordained role play and called Maya by the wise. Perhaps existence is something that need not be taken seriously, but also a thing that cannot but be taken so. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 8.
आजघ्नोति हविष्प्रीतिम् प्राञ्चम् वृणोत्यध्वरम् होत्रा देवेषु गच्छति.
Then, preparer of offering succeeds making an uninterrupted sacrifice, being in front, goes with priest calling gods among divinities. Leading from the front. The seemingly uncomplicated picture of a priest who accomplishes the preparation of an offering and himself proffers it into the sacrificial fire could subsume a much deeper implication. Perhaps this refers to a mass leader of any movement, of the political, social, military, or any other denomination, including the all encompassing business of existence, who meticulously prepares ground with men, material, and strategy, and leads from the front in its actual execution, being fully responsible, unperturbed, and with a sense of purpose, entirely confident that he is treading the path of truth in the interest of all concerned. In the context of this verse, it is Indra. His personified self makes this sacrifice with body and mind, and Agni, recognizing his spirit of dedication, calls to his aid all natural forces to make the movement a resounding success. History is replete with mention of so many such leaders and detailed description of their exploits. The divine aid in it is seen as the fact that the campaigns were triumphant and achieved their declared objectives. This point of divine intervention must also be seen in the context of the previous verse, which states that a sacrifice of even an accomplished person succeeds only when Indra yokes the person's thoughts with dharma. This condition applies unmindful of the speculation on whether it is possibilities or certainties that power existence. Mandalam 1, Suktam 18, Rik 9.
राशंसम् सुदृष्टमपश्यम् सप्रथस्तमम् दिवो न सद्ममकसनम्.
I beheld resolute Agni, the mystic, performing most extensive sacrifice in sacred precinct of heaven. Infinitesimal significance and infinite profoundness. Cosmic occurrences that are happening every moment of every Earth day is the largest and longest sacrifice of them all, beginning with the commencement of creation and concluding with its dissolution. The stage for this grand ongoing sacrifice is heaven that encompasses the entire universe beyond the protective atmospheric layer of the earth. This is the perspective of earth-bound humans, and rightly so. The viewpoint applies even to our notion of our home and the world. The structure that we live in is our home. The compound within which the structure is situated is our protective atmospheric layer of the earth, and anything beyond is the world. The same analogical differentiation applies to who we think we are, as a material body too. Agni, Indra, and all other divinities are involved in all these cosmic sacrifices, as they are in those within and about us. Seers are granted or grant themselves, as they strictly walk the path of truth, the faculty of remote viewing and hearing to witness these processes or sacrifices in person and narrate it to us, as it has been done in this verse. Even without being in possession of this faculty, non-seers only have to look up to the sky on a dark, cloudless night to behold the wonder of the vast firmament and be a remote witness to the sacrifice of colossal proportions. Agni is truly a mystic, as asserted in the verse, for he is everywhere, resolutely and discerningly doing what he has to, in ways that may seem quite mysterious to mortals with rather limited abilities. The Suktam ends with this brief, one that is too short to be able to do justice to the cosmic magnificence, and leaves us with mixed feelings, one being the realization of our triviality, and the other being that despite our infinitesimal significance, we pack within us the potential to be infinite.
Oh.